This podcast is a cinematic experience based on true medical and historical events. While every scene is rooted in fact, some scenes and dialogue have been dramatized for storytelling. You'll hear immersive sound design and special effects created to bring these moments to life, some of which may be intense or emotionally difficult. Listener discretion is advised, especially for younger audiences. Snow is falling in wide, blinding sheets that swallow distance and sound, turning the world into a white haze. The church at the edge of Elu stands in a state of half-ruin, its slate roof pierced by round shot, its beautiful stained glass shattered into glittering shards across the stone floor. Inside, tallow candle smoke curls through the air, mixing with the sour, sickly reek of open flesh. A makeshift table, just wooden planks laid across barrels, serves as an operating bench. A man lies stretched out on it. His face is gray with shock, his booted leg mangled below the knee. The patient isn't a general. He's not even an officer, in fact. He's a grenadier who bled too long in the snow. The surgeon doesn't ask his name. He doesn't have time. The soldier is dying. Names and ranks are luxuries measured in wasted seconds, irrelevant in the war against death. And as the church shudders with volley after volley of cannon fire, the surgeon works with an unexpectedly steady hand in the bitter cold. Baron Dominique Jean Larrey, chief surgeon of the Imperial Guard, ties off the femoral vessels with numb fingers. He speaks softly, calm and deliberate, his voice like a tether holding the room together, as if his words alone could keep the roof from collapsing. Another cannonball thuds outside. The church trembles, snow falls from the rafters like ash. The saw bites, quick, precise. The stump is dressed before shock can finish what the cannon started. In this frozen world, speed is mercy. Larrey nods once. Suivant! His assistants lift the man away, and another soldier takes his place. A boy, no older than 17, is placed onto the planks. He stares up at the vaulted ceiling as though he can see the moon through it. His abdomen lies open, in a dark pool of blood and torn viscera. He whispers softly for his mother. Outside the church, Larrey's little carriages, his flying ambulances, arrive and depart like bees returning to the hive through smoke. Like spring-suspended wagons pulled by nimble horses. Drivers and stretcher-bearers run through the whiteout, heads down, faces stung raw from the bitter cold winds, collecting men who would otherwise be dead by nightfall in the raging elements and chaos of war. Faster than the old wagons, closer than the old hospitals, Larrey begins a quiet revolution on wheels. People will later say that the emperor himself came to that broken church. That after the survivors were counted and the dead lay in rows beneath blankets of crushed ice, Napoleon removed his sword and placed it in Larrey's hands for his courage and devotion. But not yet. Not today. Right now there are no medals and no glory to be had. Only a thread and a saw. Only a man who refuses to let the wounded wait for the battle to end. This is where modern emergency care learns the first truth that matters. The real enemy is time. The foundations of EMS weren't laid in classrooms or city halls. They were forged on the battlefield, where survival meant moving the wounded fast, improvising care, and learning what worked under fire.
But it didn't stay there. Those lessons bled into the civilian world. Cardiac ambulances rolling through city streets, Freedom House proving what trained paramedics could do, and a white paper that demanded America wake up to its failures.
Piece by piece, the fragments came together. Military medicine, public health, local experiments, each one adding to the system that we know today.
It was messy, uneven, and sometimes overlooked, but out of it came the foundation of modern pre-hospital care.
I'm Evan.
And I'm Sophie.
This is Past Medical History.
The Story of EMS.
Years before Elu, before the sword, before the snow, Larrey stands on another field and watches men die in rows. They're not standing against the enemy. They're not charging with sabers raised. They're simply wounded men, left to wait, left to die. The old way of doing things says you gather the wounded after the battle, when the wagons can creak onto the ground, uncontested. What Larrey begins to understand terrifies him. The killing blow is not always the wound. Sometimes it's the weight. Larrey kneels beside soldier after soldier and feels their warmth fade long before help reaches them. In that awful stillness, in that long line of bodies cooling in the snow, Larrey realizes the battlefield has two enemies, and only one of them carries a sword. Larrey has seen artillery before. Every surgeon had. But now something new rolls across the French field, something the gunners call flying batteries, light cannons, 6 horses pulling guns that leap across the open ground, pivoting and redeploying in minutes. Larrey watches them with stunned clarity. These guns aren't waiting for the battle to come to them. They're chasing it. And in that moment, the idea strikes him like lightning. If artillery can reach the front line faster, why can't medicine? Why are weapons allowed mobility, but not surgeons? Why should medicine remain behind the lines when the wounded bleed in front of them? The flying batteries solved the problems of war by chasing the fight. Surgeons must solve their problems by chasing the wounded. Mobile medicine. Close enough to touch a dying man before time does. When Larrey proposes bringing surgeons closer to the fire line, he's met with disbelief, mockery, and outrage. The wounded can wait, they insist. The battle cannot. But Larrey has already watched men die in the time others call waiting. And for what? How does this benefit the battle, to let wounded men become dead men? So he begins the slow work, sketching by candlelight, studying artillery frames, speaking with gunners, farriers, wheelwrights, anyone who understands speed, weight, shock, and movement. He builds a coalition of the curious. Not all of them share his vision, but they do admire his conviction. Quartermasters resist. Carriages are scarce. Wood is being rationed, and iron is worth its weight in gold. Larrey writes, argues, and refuses to yield. "Move me forward," he says, "and I will save them." Finally, reluctantly, he's given a few old carriages, enough to begin. Inside them he builds drawers, compartments, and hooks for flasks. 2-wheel frames for speed, or 4-wheel frames for rough ground. Suspension that bends under shock so broken bodies don't break again. All of his designs are optimized for one task: to steal minutes back from death. He trains drivers who can read a battlefield like a map, stretcher bearers who move like dancers in a storm, assistant surgeons who can tie, cut, and calm, a trumpeter to cut through the smoke, and a drummer boy with a satchel full of bandages. And his rule, simple and absolute: we go in when the guns are still roaring. But it's not the way things are done. The front is a place for killing, not healing. But Larrey refuses to accept that. The first time his carriages dart onto the battlefield and return loaded with the wounded, men on the ridge stop to stare. The second time they cheer. Then something unexpected happens. Morale begins to rise. A new kind of hope moves through the ranks. If they fall, someone will come. At Metz, the idea becomes doctrine. In Italy, it becomes a standard practice. In Egypt, where the wheels sink and the road dissolves into sand, Larrey lashes the litters to camels and keeps moving. Geography changes. The principle does not. Close the distance. Narrow the delay. Begin care now. Commanders discover compassion is a force multiplier. Critics complain about exposure, about risk, about decorum. Larrey answers with the only numbers that matter: the lives he saves. He refines relentlessly. He sets stations 3 miles back, close enough for speed, far enough for triage. Kits are packed identically, so that a ligature can be found in the dark by touch alone. But the core remains stubborn and beautiful. No wounded person will lie unattended while still drawing breath. The ambulances will fly. The more radical invention is not the carriage. It's the sorting. In the old order, rank dictates priority. An officer's bruise is attended to before a private's open belly. The enemy soldiers are last, or not at all. Larrey throws it all away. He looks beyond rank, beyond insignia, beyond the uniform. He sees only human beings with the sand of time slipping away. Who will die in the next hour if we don't act? Who can wait? Who is beyond help? Those with the worst injuries are treated first, treated by need, not by name. It sounds so obvious now, but it wasn't then. It violated class. It violated habit. A private tries to surrender his place when an officer limps forward. Larrey stops him. He has no patience for ceremony in the face of the dying. The lesson is simple and cuts deeper than any saber. In the kingdom of the wounded, no one stands above another. Larrey's ideas follow Napoleon's army across Europe, west to Italy, east to Austria, north into Prussia. Each campaign teaches him something new: placement, speed, training, instinct. As the empire expands, Larrey becomes indispensable. He goes because the army goes. He goes because the wounded go. He goes because he must meet the dying where they fall. Egypt teaches Larrey a different lesson in humanity. The French armies march under a sun that scalds the back and blinds the eyes, but the wounded still come, carried on makeshift stretchers of palm fronds and torn cloaks. A wounded Mamluk is lifted into a French ambulance after the Battle of the Pyramids. He expects cruelty, a boot or blade, but Larrey kneels beside him and begins the ritual of care, checking his pulse, respirations, providing pain relief. Tents ripple in the desert wind. Sand grits between teeth. The Nile burns like brass. For the first time since he fell, the Mamluk exhales without fear. Days later, he sends Larrey a ring, heavy, carved, worn smooth by years of battle. It's the only language he has for gratitude. Larrey wears the ring with pride. In Jaffa, a street performer limped into a hospital tent, cradling a trembling monkey. Its tiny leg hangs crooked, broken clean through. Larrey had just finished an amputation, blood drying on his sleeves, the metallic scent hanging in the air. The performer begged, not for himself, but for the small life shivering in his hands. Larrey said nothing. He washed his hands, sat down on the ground, and set the tiny monkey's leg with the same precision he gave any soldier. It made no tactical sense, and precisely because of that, it became everything, a reminder that even in war, humanity can push its way through. In Aka, Larrey leans over a bleeding general while the city around him is being torn to shreds. A stray bullet tears the hat he's wearing clean off his head. He doesn't flinch and finishes the sutures. The general lives. Orderlies share the story. Bravery or madness, they can't decide. But to Larrey, it's simply the job. That brings us back to Elu, the frozen church, the roaring blizzard, the crumbling walls. When the Russian line surges towards the church doors, someone yells for Larrey to run. He doesn't. He can't. "I will not abandon the wounded," he says. A cavalry wave explodes through the snow, then recedes into whiteness. The table remains, and so does Larrey. His triage becomes muscle memory. Fairness becomes culture. By the early 1800s, Larrey's system is doctrine. Speed becomes the difference between life and death. Larrey memorizes the math of blood loss the way a priest knows scripture. He writes what he learns. He teaches anyone who will stand beside him. He leads from the front, not from a desk. And when bureaucracy tries to slow him with committees and contests, Larrey returns to the only place where argument ends, to the field. Because in battle, there are no debates, only the wounded, and the seconds left to save them. It's June 1815 in Waterloo. Larrey is older now, but the fire in him is unchanged. Rain falls in sheets. The French line buckles. The battlefield dissolves into smoke and hoofprints and mud. Larrey drives his ambulances as far as they will go because someone out there is still breathing. But Waterloo collapses faster than he can work. The guns fade. The troops retreat. And Larrey remains where he has always remained, beside the wounded. When the fog lifts, he realizes he has done the unthinkable. He's outstayed the army. That's how they found him. He's seized and dragged before an enemy general who studies him with cold deliberation. Shoot him. Rifles lift. And then a voice breaks through the chaos. Another surgeon steps forward, mud on his boots, blood on his sleeves, and recognition in his eyes. He knows Larrey, the name, the work, the mercy given to enemies. He places himself between Larrey and the rifles, a human shield made not of rank or allegiance, but gratitude. Word climbs through the Prussian ranks, to Bülow, who orders food and clothing, to Blücher, who remembers a wound in his son's neck, and the French surgeon who tried to tie it off with minutes to spare. By dusk, Larrey is sharing a table with his enemy. Compassion has a long memory. The world does not change overnight, but Larrey's ideas refuse to die. They sleep in doctrine, linger in textbooks, wait in the margins of medical history for the next generation to wake them. A half-century later, a Union surgeon named Jonathan Letterman rediscovers the need to move care forward on the field of Antietam. He builds an ambulance corps, evacuation chains, field stations, not because he knows Larrey, but because war forces him to recognize the same truth. In the 20th century, engines replace horses. Radios replace trumpets. Helicopters put rotors on Larrey's little carriages. lifting the wounded skyward in minutes. Survival curves bend upward. People survive who never would have survived before. The phrase, the golden hour, becomes doctrine, but Larrey lived it more than a century earlier. Triage spreads everywhere. Battlefields, wildfires, collapsed buildings, mass casualty scenes at 3 a.m. when asphalt and physics have made a mess and someone must make a decision on who gets pulled from the wreckage first. We sort by need. We move fast. We close the distance, one way or another. Winning the war against time is winning the war against death. Strip away the uniforms, the centuries and the equipment, and what remains is the principle Larrey trusted with his life. Compassion, when organized and set in motion, can outrun chaos. Modern EMS is that belief made real. Our systems are promises we keep to strangers, and the minutes we reclaim for a patient in the worst moments of their life become the tomorrows they get to spend on this side of death.
We could end our story with Napoleon's praise of Larrey, the most virtuous man I have ever known. Or with Wellington ordering his guns to hold their fire rather than cut down a surgeon at work. But it's better to end with something familiar. The way a crew steps into chaos and quietly builds order where none existed 60 seconds ago. Stand beside a medic at a crash scene and watch them sort the living, the dead, and the living who will die if we don't move. You are standing in Larrey's shadow. Hear a helicopter beat the air above the tree line and know someone just gained an hour they were about to lose. You are hearing Larrey's idea with blades. The world learned to come when called because someone dared to move the line forward. Because a surgeon in a storm believed the wounded would not wait. In the end, a flying ambulance is not a carriage, or a rotor, or a red box of tools. It is a choice we keep making, again and again. Need before name, time before tradition, courage before comfort. Hold tight to that when the tones drop. Speed is kindness, organized. That is Larrey's lesson, and EMS's inheritance. Letterman took Larrey's spark and wired it into his system. He taught us that disorganization is not an inconvenience. It's a cause of death. That logistics can kill. And that logistics, rebuilt with intention, can save more lives than any single pair of hands. If you work in EMS today, you live in the echo of that choice. Every time you move the sickest patient first. Every time you fight for a faster transport or demand a cleaner, clearer chain of care. Or are practicing a medicine he never lived to see. The wounded cannot wait, and time is always the real enemy. Next time, we meet the man who rewired time itself. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Past Medical History, the Story of EMS. If you did, it would mean the world to us if you took a moment to rate and review the show wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps others discover these stories and keeps us inspired to share more. Know someone who loved this episode? Send it their way and help us grow the conversation. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at PMHX Podcast for behind-the-scenes updates and announcements about our first season. Stay tuned for release dates and more exclusive content. Past Medical History, the Story of EMS is a Nova Sequence Studios production in association with Long Pause Media, a division of Flightbridge Ed. Music by Wicked Cinema.